Let's come back to that cladding conversation, as you heard on this show yesterday, and subsequently it was expanded upon by the Housing Secretary, Michael Gove. He said that blameless homeowners should be protected from all the costs of fixing fire safety problems at tower blocks. After the Grenfell fire, he vowed to make developers fit the bill even, by any means necessary. The Housing Secretary is saying laws will be drawn up to ensure leaseholders were not liable for the costs of any fire safety fixes, not just cladding. Other problems include missing fire breaks and wooden balconies, which on average make up around a third of the bills facing tower block residents. Now, you're going to be hearing from one young woman who we believe is in receipt of the highest bill for fire safety issues with her apartment in Hertfordshire. You'll be hearing from Sophie Bichener in a moment. Let's hear a little first what Michael Gove said to the House yesterday.
We should not ask hard-working taxpayers to pay more taxes to get developers and cladding companies making vast profits off the hook. We'll make industry pay to fix all of the remaining problems and to help to cover the range of costs facing leaseholders. To those who missold dangerous products like cladding or insulation, to those who cut corners to save cash as they developed or refurbished people's homes, and to those who sought to profiteer from the consequences of the Grenfell tragedy, we are coming for you.
Michael Gove yesterday. As I say, Sophie Bichener in just a moment, but let's just get some of the legal aspect on this. Russell Conway, senior partner at Oliver Fisher solicitors firm, a specialist in property law. Here's something I don't fully understand, and I explored with the Housing Secretary yesterday, Mr. Conway. I'm a building developer, right? I'm not profiteering. I'm not trying to cut corners. I fitted cladding that had government regulations at the time, was thus authorised, and yet now I'm going to have to pay to remove it. How fair is that? Good morning.
That's probably not fair, but that isn't every case. And in fact, in a lot of cases, the developers had a very good idea of what was going on and had a very good idea about the safety or otherwise of materials. And it's worth reflecting on the fact that Michael Gove has spoken about getting recompense not just from developers and builders, but also from materials manufacturers, because this is a problem that is caused not just by builders and developers, but as you rightly say, the manufacturers of materials. But what interests me most about this announcement, and one has to be cautious about announcements in the House of Commons, what we need to see is the proposed amendments to the Building Safety Bill, which is currently going through the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And it would be very interesting indeed to see what other measures are put in, such as relieving leaseholders from the worry of having their leases taken away from them because of excessive bills. I mean, people are getting on average bills of £40,000. I've had clients who have come to see me with bills of £250,000. Now, when we see the amendments to the Building Safety Bill, we'll be able to see exactly how serious the government is about resolving this problem.
What would you be looking for specifically, Mr. Conway, with your legal eye?
Well, the most important thing is not just to home in on the cladding panels. Cladding panels are awful and contributed towards the fire in Grenfell, but there are so many other things, such as repairing defective fire breaks, taking out defective insulation, dealing with wooden balconies that might look nice but go up in flames, having door stops, putting in sprinklers and fire and smoke alarms, solving problems of compartmentation. Now, all of these sound like detail and they sound a bit boring. Cladding is the sort of sexy word which everybody homes in on. But it's not just cladding. Cladding is only part of the problem. And I'd like to see what detail is actually dealt with in the Building Safety Bill, because Gove has an opportunity now to resolve this problem. It's been dragging on for many years. It's not just 4.5 years since Grenfell. It's been dragging on since the Lacanau house fire in 2009, when 6 people, including 3 children, died in similar circumstances to Grenfell. After the Lacanau house fire, the coroner told the government to make changes, but they simply didn't. Now, this is the government's opportunity to resolve this before we have another disaster, because there are thousands of blocks out there which are unsafe. It can only be a matter of time before there's another fire.
Russell Conway, thank you for your time. You're senior partner at the Oliver Fisher solicitors firm. Thank you for that. Now, I've mentioned this young woman, Sophie Bichener, who has received what's thought to be the highest known fire safety bill in the country. Now, Sophie bought her apartment in Hertfordshire in 2017 for £230,000, and she joins me now to tell us what is the amount of the charges that have been requested to make it safe. Good morning, Sophie.
Morning. So my fire safety bill at the moment is £208,000. That doesn't include my fire patrol costs that are probably around £8,000 and other interim costs on top. So that number is still growing and we don't really know the extent of it yet.
How is it broken down? Are you particularly high up? Have you got more cladding than anyone else? Do we have a sense of what's caused this?
It's actually really difficult for leaseholders to know that because we are really the last person in the chain to know about our buildings, which sounds crazy, but our freeholders and our developers and our management company are all the ones that are kind of requesting the funding and the work to be done. So we know that around £60,000 of that bill is all of the non-cladding items, so things like flammable insulation, missing smoke barriers, and non-emergency lighting, missing smoke seals, so the whole host of other fire safety defects.
How old is your apartment block?
The block itself is about 60 years old, but it was a converted office block in 2016. So at that time, you'd expect that the building would have met building regulations in order for people to buy it.
Were you the first owner of your apartment, or had it had a previous owner?
Yes, so we all bought off plan, which I think, you trust the people are going to go and then make the building as expected, and it will be signed off as expected. It's got all of its fire safety sign-off, but we know that it wasn't built to regulation.
Where is the building firm?
Barriers.
Have you been able to track down the building firm? Are they still in existence?
Nope. As is the case with many of these buildings, our developer transferred the assets and moved on. They have parent companies, but the law as is means we can't go to that company to ask questions. For us, that money at the moment, I've got that as a demand in my service charge, and as a bill that landed on my doorstep for £208,000.
Absurd, absolutely.
And there doesn't seem to be anyone we can go to.
And you own the freehold?
No, so we have a freeholder, and so they're the company I assume that Michael Gove will be going to at some point.
Well, now, okay, so this is what I was going to ask you, Sophie. How do the changes yesterday? How do they affect you? Do they help you? Does that mean that £208,000 bill will be addressed?
We have currently provisional sign-off for funding for 60% of that bill, but that still leaves me with around £60,000. The changes yesterday were welcome news, and it's great that the government have started talking about this crisis and really deciding to make changes. But we've known our building's been unsafe for 2 years now, and we haven't seen any funding or any attempts to make it good. And I think for us, the costs that are non-cladding, it's still yet to be seen whether the government will introduce any measures into the building safety bill that will protect us. And this is ongoing now. Like I said, I've got that bill on my doorstep already in my account. And many people that I know, other leaseholders that are impacted, have already remediated for stuff that potentially they didn't need to. They've already paid. There are people who have already lost their homes and have decided to take bankruptcy over a 4-year-long crisis.
Good grief. You met with Michael Gove yesterday, is that correct, with other campaigners?
Yeah, so the End Our Cladding Scandal campaign met with Michael Gove yesterday, and it was the second meeting that we've had with him regarding the crisis. How
would you describe that meeting? How would you describe the mood?
Yeah, I think it was a very positive meeting, and leaseholders are very pleased that the government have realised finally that leaseholders shouldn't be the financial solution to this, and that those developers who built these homes incorrectly or used the wrong materials should be held accountable. But there is still huge concern that asking developers nicely again now for money will take years, and they may say no. And then onwards from that, what about all the people, as I mentioned, who've already remediated, people who are currently paying tens of thousands of pounds a week for fire patrols, and people who've seen their insurance premiums raise it by over 3,000%? That seems like lost money to me, but people have lost their life savings. They're really in a desperate situation now, and this solution that we spoke to Michael about yesterday in the meeting doesn't seem like it's going to be a quick fix.
Lastly, we've focused understandably on the financial side. Just briefly, the emotional side. You've had the worry, obviously, the financial stress of trying to find, which is beyond most people anyway, the idea of £208,000, but also the fact that you obviously are living in a property that might be unsafe.
Yeah, I mean, you do have that. I know lots of leaseholders kind of, we are up at night wondering about how safe these buildings are. But for me, in reality, the financial aspect is a lot more worrying. For the last 2 years, I haven't been able to plan my future or think about what that might look like. It could be bankruptcy. I could lose my job. I can't commit to things in the future because I just don't know when the next bill's going to land. And I've really struggled personally with anxiety over that for the last year. And lots of leaseholders are in the same situation. I mean, we held a rally, coincidentally, on Michael Gove's first day in office in Parliament Square. And there were so many tears and so many people there just kind of distraught. Yeah. And I honestly don't think I've met one person in this crisis who hasn't really, really struggled with their mental health throughout this crisis.
Well, you sound very together now, but it must be awful, as you say. At times you just wonder how you got yourself in this situation. I do wish you well. At least it is a start, as you say, that Mr Gove attained yesterday. Thank you, Sophie Bichener, who's believed to have the highest bill in the country.